Well, tell me, mama, what's going on? Tell me, darling, what's going on? I'm going back.
Welcome back, everybody. Bacon and Egg Show, episode number 40. Can you
Whoa.
believe it?
Whoa.
40.
Dang.
6th of February, 2021. Mike, it's good to have you back, man. Jay,
Hey, what's up?
what's going on?
Hey, not a lot. Yeah, we were texting last night and we confirmed Mike to be able to come on today. And I was like, all right, band's getting back together, baby. Let's do it. Let's roll. Mike, how's it going, man? How you been?
It's good, man. So, rocking and rolling. I'm ready for winter to be over. So my wife told me the other day that winter was over. So I didn't take a jacket to work and didn't pay attention. It was like 42 degrees outside. So
No, man, that fall spring hit us hard, man. What was it? It got to like 85 the other day. And it was
Oh,
like,
man.
oh, this is great. Like it's pool weather now. And then that fall spring, man, it'll
That is.
oh, man.
It'll get you every time. It'll get you every time. Well, I know we wanted to have Mike on for a couple of different reasons, but Kerry, where do you want to start today?
Well, let's start with the Runnin Horns. We had a pretty big matchup this past week in Austin. Number 6 ranked Texas and number 2 ranked Baylor. This is a game that we've been talking about since we started previewing the season for Texas basketball. And this was a kind of, if you just looked at the score line and you didn't have any context to the season, you'd kind of say like, oh, that's a pretty ugly loss for Texas. I mean, the score wasn't great, but guys, what were the takeaways from this loss for Texas heading into, what's going to be an interesting matchup today against Oklahoma State on the road?
Yeah, I mean, I think we expected this to be Baylor's great, and we've always said that Baylor's are just a great team. They're top 2 teams in the country easily. We knew this was going to be a tough battle for Texas, and then a couple of things don't go your way, and one of the thing that I'm going to focus on is going to be you can't go 3 of 14 from the free throw line. That to me is you just can't and expect to win a college basketball game, and then 17 turnovers as well. So when this is just, and if we're just talking about the day of game stuff that went wrong for me, it was the free throws and the turnovers. Mike, I know there was the extenuating circumstances surrounding off the game court stuff was also a hindrance in your mind. What were some of your thoughts about sort of the lead up to this Baylor game and some of the breaks that Texas hadn't been able to catch?
Yeah, for me, it's, kind of disappointing that, this was the second game in I think like almost 3 weeks that Texas had played, and then hadn't really been practicing either. People had been in and out of practice. Coaches, obviously Shaka dealing with his situation. It just created, and not to make excuses, but if you're not playing, it's really hard to get a rhythm. I mean, you saw that start that Texas had, beating some really quality teams, playing a really nice game against Villanova. And then just everything with the combination of Jace Febris trying to work back into the lineup. Like, this could have been the worst time for this thing to happen. And it's really we're going to see some adversity here, which is kind of nice to see. We haven't really taken a hard hit in the rankings because, some of these losses have been tough, hard fought losses. I mean, if you look at it, I think the Big 12 has like 7 teams, in the top, I think in the top 29 of KenPom now. So it's like, I mean, it's just every night. It's going to come down to one possession games a lot of the time. And today it's a 2-point, Texas is a favorite, and we'll see how this goes down. Traveling to Oklahoma State's never an easy thing in Stillwater. I mean, they're coming off a couple of good wins, and they've also got probably the number 1 pick in the draft, Kate Cunningham. So it's going to pose some challenges, but I think overall, just the whole COVID situation just kind of took Texas out of its rhythm. But Courtney Ramey was quoted as saying that it's really, everyone's kind of dealing with this situation. It depends on where in the season you are when this thing hits. And I think that in the middle of the Big 12 gauntlet, it couldn't have been a worse time. But, Shaka's got to find a way to make this thing happen. The talent's still there. You just got to work your guys back in and make things happen. And for me, college basketball boils down to three things. It's outside shooting, so three-point shooting, turnovers, and then rebounding. And against Baylor, it was just one of those deals where you turn the ball over too much. I mean, you had a 2-point lead with 30 minutes into the game almost. So, it was there for the taking. But anytime a team's going to shoot, over 50% from three, I mean, you're not going to win too many basketball games when the opponent shoots over 50%. And then you're right on the free throws, 3 out of 14. And a lot of those, I think 3 or 4 of those were one-on-one situations where if you made the free throw, you get another free throw. And so, yeah, it's a bad break too with Greg Brown, that monster jam that just the momentum just seemed to would have shifted to Texas, and it was just taken away where that basket was basically eliminated off of that weak technical foul call. They get 2 shots and they get the ball. So it's like that play almost didn't even happen. That was a pretty crucial part of the game. So, yeah, not to make a lot of excuses, but there's just a lot of crazy things going on during this season that they're going to have to deal with. And I think we're going to have to see what this team's made of here in the next couple of weeks. It's not going to get any easier.
Yeah, and that's where, if you kind of look at the remaining schedule, if there was any place where there was an opportunity to kind of get a little bit of that groove back, it's now. It's the couple games that are coming up before the slate really starts getting difficult again. And if there's no more COVID issues with this team and the things, they can kind of get rolling again, then this is the best spot to do it. I mean, going up to Stillwater and getting a win today would definitely do that. And that's where, we talk about now a team that's lost 3 out of 4, but I mean, if you look at those losses within that, we just talked about the Baylor game. We've talked about the Oklahoma game where you're missing significant bodies, in contributors, not just depth guys, but actual contributors that didn't play. And that was a 1-point loss. And then, the Tech game, which Tech is a really, really good team. We're very aware of that. And that's one of those kind of games where you left it going, it's kind of the reverse of what Texas did at West Virginia. It's just the nature of this Big 12, how deep it is. But so while it's 3 out of 4, it's, I mean, it's not moral victories, but it's kind of it's not this isn't what we've seen from kind of previous Texas teams under Shaka Smart. So I think they're going to turn it around today and get it going. But where do you guys see this kind of going now? If this team, assuming the COVID issues, they're kind of over that hump a little bit, where does this team get back into the rhythm? Where does this team kind of, now that we've seen a good amount of Big 12 play, and especially against, the best team in the conference, Baylor, where do you see this team kind of falling in and finishing out as we kind of head into the last half of conference play?
When you talk about the Texas Tech game, that was January 13th.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we're taking that into consideration here, how the schedule has not favored Texas just in terms of being able to play regular games and gel, come together. I mean, this is such a talented roster, and they were at their peak when they were playing regularly. Everybody was getting run, and they were able to go 10 deep on the bench. Texas Tech, Kansas State, Oklahoma, Baylor. That's a tough run right there, the last 4 games. But now we're turning around here. Oklahoma State today, then Kansas State, then TCU. You get 3 winnable games before you have a return against Oklahoma, which hopefully everybody's at full strength at that point. So this 3-game run here, if they can play all these games, if they can get them all in, have everybody on the floor, and just play the type of basketball that they were playing before all of this stuff went down, really use these games here to get back into that rhythm, I think they're going to be fine. If they finish 4th or 5th in this conference, it's not going to matter. They're still going to be a top 10, top 15 team, no matter what, with a high seed going into the big dance. And Mike, for me, it's just a matter of getting a little bit of rhythm, getting through this, just get through the season and get to the tournament, man. What's your take?
Yeah, no, I think this is a good stretch right here just to kind of get your feet underneath you. And also people are underestimating what we're doing here with Jace Febris. So trying to work someone in that was a starter last year, that's played significant minutes, that brings a significant difference to your team, a different look, how you play defense. I think this is kind of the key to look at. So I'm not really looking at wins and losses, because the Big 12, it's like, I mean, literally, if you watch this thing every night, it's like, someone's going down to the wire, and it doesn't matter if it's the 8th place team. I mean, we had it the other day when it's like Texas Tech was like 7th in the league,
Right.
and they're in the top 15, or I think they were like ranked number 11 or something like that. It's like, I'm not too worried about like wins, losses. If this team does finish 4th or 5th, there's probably still gonna be a 3 seed in the
Right.
big tournament. So really, what I'm looking for is just getting their feet underneath them, getting the games in, trying to get back to where they were at the beginning of the season. Because that wasn't a fluke earlier this year. You were beating quality teams left and right. So that's just what it is for me. It's just getting on the court, seeing how we can work out these rotations. And then, Shaka dealing with that stuff, I think that kind of shook him too, man. Like, not having your coach it's a big deal. I know KT Turner's done, he's a good assistant. He'll be a head coach someday, but, missing him for that game was just, it was rough. So I think it's time to just, put their head down, get some quality wins here, and then get ready to go through that gauntlet again for that end of the season. And then hopefully you get yourself a nice little seeding. And then in the big dance, I mean, anything can happen. So, we just got to be playing our best basketball once the tournament starts. So.
And Kerry, I think to me, the thing that I look for in March is guard play. And Texas was outplayed by Baylor's guards. I mean, they're arguably the best trio of guards in the country, but that's what you're going to have to go up against if you're going to be successful and go super deep into this tournament.
Yeah. There's no shame in being outplayed by that group. And
Right.
I did want to, Mike, you mentioned something, thinking about this when we talk about the Big 12, and I'm going to mention this specifically with Baylor, and that's the margin of victory that they've had over everybody. What is it? First team since UNLV in the early 90s to like win every single game at this point of the season by 8 or more points. Is there something to take? Because one of the things I was thinking about in that game was that in the Texas Baylor game was how this Texas team this year has been in these close, tight situations over and over and over again. And they've, for the most part, minus the Tech game, found themselves on like the positive end of it, positive end of making game-winning shots, making game-winning defensive stops. Is there something to be said about Baylor, a team as good as Baylor, heading into the tournament without having been tested like that at the end of a game? Not having that kind of like, we're 30 seconds, it's a 1 or 2 point game, we're down. Like,
yeah,
is there something to that, to where a team like Texas is going to have that kind of experience?
So for me, I think it's I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Baylor now that they're on aren't they on I believe they're on a COVID pause right now. I want to see how they battle through this, but most of these guys came back from last year, but I think, I mean, if you're not playing in close games, you don't really have the feel, for what's going on. And do I dread going to a 1 possession game like almost every other weekend? It's not the most fun thing in the world when it's a win or loss based on, the last 2 minutes of the game. But I think it really says something when you get into the tournament, because the tournament, the first round, you have blowouts, but other than that, man, the tournament's usually pretty, pretty stockpiled with teams that, can get it done. So, we'll see. Baylor's this is their best team they probably ever had. So,
Right.
to play with them up until that, and really, I think Texas just got tired too, man. You saw some guys just winded. I think Jericho Sims probably would have played a lot more had this been a kind of a regular season that they were playing through instead of this COVID pause, because he was winded too. And I think he would have made a lot more difference there. With Baylor, it's an all-time team along with Gonzaga. So everybody expects those two to meet in the title game at the end of the year. But honestly, that never happens that way. So, them not playing these close games, I mean, it might come back to bite them. But, hey, if I'm a betting guy, I'd put them in the Final Four. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
if you were a betting guy, right?
Yeah.
What was that spread for the Texas game again? It was what, 2?
Yeah.
2, it's 2. Yeah.
Man, that's actually closer than I was thinking it would be.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think Vegas is wanting to see what Texas has here, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be a good test today. So what time is that?
2:00 today.
All right. Well, guys, let's move on. Let's talk a little football. We just had the second National Signing Day, which, February used to be so prominent in college football. I mean, that's Mac Brown's nickname, right? I mean, he's Coach February for however many years before winning championships, because that's when you signed all of your recruits. It's when you had to get all of your national letters of intent in. That's not the case anymore. We have the early signing day now, before the end of the year, and now the February one's kind of the cleaning up the class and in kind of adding those late risers and some of those late evaluations that coaches pick up on. Mike, lead it off here for us with what Texas did to finish up this 2021 class on second National Signing Day.
Yeah, so I think Sark and company did a pretty good job just kind of closing this thing out. You were in contention for some guys that kind of surprising, like Austin UK, who ended up going to Stanford, but you made it really close when if Tom Herman had probably offered him earlier, or given, in the evaluation process, we probably would be coming to Texas. So I think Sark and them had an uphill battle, but you did land some solid pieces. I'm a huge fan of David Ibar, the defensive end out of Mansfield. Pop on his tape and you can see that this kid is he's got a chance to be pretty good. So with kind of with the new defensive scheme, these are the kind of defensive ends you're looking for, more of the stand-up tweener guys that can really get after the quarterback. So
yeah,
really
real quick on him, is it safe to say that maybe he is the one in this class that is kind of a true like Sark staff evaluation? Like he wasn't really in the mix under the Herman regime, right? Like this was kind of like a fresh, like
this was a good get. Yeah, no, for sure. It kind of off the radar. And then you saw Sark and company come out and convince this kid like, hey, like we look at this defense that we're about to run, and he's a good fit for it. Long arms, explosive off the edge. So I think you get him a year or two in the weight room and see what this kid can turn out to be. So what are your thoughts on him, Jay?
Yeah, I was excited to see that name pop up. And like you said, it was just one of those sort of, you didn't hear anything about him at all. And then his name pops up one day and you're like, okay, like let's see if we can get this guy. And then slowly but surely all the arrows pointed in the direction of Texas and it worked out. So yeah, no, it's these guys like that. It reminds me of the type of player that TCU gets sometimes, the type of moldable athlete that, you put on a little bit of muscle, you spend a couple of years in a program like this. And if it turns out the way that you want it to, you're going to have a 2 or 3 year starter that's going to make an impact on your program. And I think that's his ceiling here. I think he has the ability to come in here and do that. And one of the things, I forget, Mike, if you shared this with us or if it was Kerry, but Jeff Ketchum at orangebloods.com said like players at his position and profile from the state of Texas have developed into pros at a 40% rate over the last 20 years. So when you look at the profile of this guy, when you look at what his ceiling is, to be able to get somebody like this on what is now the late signing day, for me, I think that really speaks well to what we should expect to see in the future with some of these recruiting classes under Sark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's a position of need with Texas right now. I mean, you need guys that can get after the quarterback. And I think that's exactly what they identified. And they said, let's go get this guy. So a great get. You also had Keithron Lee, the slot receiver, out of Bryan, who's kind of a holdover from Herman's late evaluation process. And I guess we can give our boy a little bit of props there for evaluating this kid. Sark decided to go ahead and get him on board, and nice little slot receiver, slight of stature, but this guy has some wheels on him. So I think he's a pretty exciting prospect, probably someone that's going to take a few years to make a name for himself. But you pop on the film and you're like, whoa, like why is this guy not recruited sooner? So what are you guys' thoughts on Lee?
Yeah, I think given what Sark wants to do with the offense, he fits perfectly. I mean, we may have had this discussion before, but kind of how did it seem like Tom Herman, maybe not seem, I think it was kind of apparent, but like Tom Herman kind of had this obsession in a way of like big bodied wide receivers. Like that was kind of one of his first like evaluation things. Like if you weren't a big receiver, then you kind of got pushed to the back of the line a little bit, unless you're somebody like a Jake Smith that was like a national player of the year type talent coming out of Arizona. And so the Keith Ron Lee thing for me is like, that's what you see all across the country right now. Like the wide receivers that are making plays every Saturday are these guys. Like, I mean, look at the Heisman Trophy winner. You talk about sleight of stature, like, but those are the kind of players that, hey, they're fast, they've got good hands, they'll outrun anybody on a defense. Just get them the ball, get them into space, get them the ball, and let them do work. And I think that's what I think of with Keith Ron Lee is that, yeah, I mean, maybe he's a little bit of a developmental guy. Like he's not that top tier receiver that will be on the field immediately as a true freshman, but he fits what Sark's wanting to do. And to me, that's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to look very, very far to see some of these receivers that maybe aren't the biggest type of guys to have the success on the national level, including the guy that just won the Heisman Trophy. So, I mean, I'm not saying that that's who, I'm not necessarily saying that that's who this young guy is, but when you have the right scheme, I think I'm excited to see if Sark thought enough of this guy to keep him on and sort of, keep that ball rolling for him, then that's good enough for me, Mike. And that's sort of why I'm happy. I was kind of surprised that it stayed through because we knew that it was one of Herman's sort of project guys, but I'm glad, if Sark likes him enough to keep him, man, that's it's good enough for me. And we were excited about the burners that he had too. We've been excited about that since day one. So he's a fast kid.
Yeah, and he's a late riser. I mean, like this guy wasn't on a lot of boards. I mean, not really a top 100 state player. And the next thing you know, in late, in December, he pops up as almost a top 50 player in the state. You don't really see that happen too often for that big of a jump from recruiting servers. So I don't know if there was just a missed opportunity on evaluation from a lot of schools. It just seemed kind of weird that now all of a sudden he's a top 50 player in the state. It's like, well, yeah, you can kind of see it when you pop on his film. He's just running away from guys. So, I mean, I think this is a great take.
Yeah, he seems like one of those guys that would have ended up at a place like Oklahoma and puts up a 200-yard receiving game. You think about like Marquise Brown and those kind of guys, like what Lincoln Riley does with their receivers, and puts those guys in the NFL, and they're all, a lot of those guys are undersized, but they're fast, they have good hands, and they have good instincts. And, sometimes the recruiting services, I guess, the measurables are such a big thing because it's like, hey, you're trying to project talent and whatever level of high school football they're playing at, it might not always be apparent, but it's like, hey, if they've got the measurables, then we can project that. But if you're undersized, I think it's a little tougher.
Right. I definitely agree. So what are you guys' thoughts overall, just how this kind of finished up? I mean, still disappointing on the offensive line side.
Yeah, to say the least.
Well, you mentioned it earlier. It's like if we could get in earlier on some of these guys, and with Herb Hand and Herman combined, it just didn't seem, for whatever reason, it just wasn't happening. And hope now we're looking at. We'll talk about the 2022 class in a little while, but starting to maybe hopefully see some inroads met over in terms of the offensive line recruiting. But for 2021, I mean, I feel good about how it wrapped up. There was a couple of guys that, we wanted them all, and we knew that there was a coin flip on some of these, and maybe even worse than that in terms of Texas maybe landing them. But for me, and these preferred walk-ons that they got as well, not even that aren't necessarily in the scholarship numbers, obviously. That to me was a nice sort of cherry on the top of that sundae for this 2021 class.
Yeah, it's a transition class, and I think that's kind of when we knew that the time was up for Tom Herman, when we were looking at this class back in December and saying, like, this looks like a transition class, but there hasn't been a transition in the coaching staff yet. That's a problem. Mm-hmm. And I think I saw that this class is going to finish like a 17th in the country, around there. Like, it's
15 to 17.
Yeah, top 20, but not like not at like the standard that Texas wants to be, obviously. But Jay, I'm glad you mentioned the preferred walk-on thing because I think that there's some really interesting players that are coming in with that. His name escapes me now, but the guy from Westlake, the defensive like back-to-back defensive MVP in the state title game.
Yeah, Michael Taff.
Taff.
Yeah.
That's a guy that's going to see the field, right? Like, and to get that guy as a preferred walk-on, obviously, local connection and all those things is huge. Cole Lord, the quarterback from Southern California, a 3-star guy that just, I guess, wasn't playing in, California and high school football has been on hold. So there's not a ton of tape, but like, seems like some of the national guys are saying that this is a pretty like impressive get for Sark. And
the guy turned down a scholarship from LSU, right? So
yeah,
I mean, I know he's a legacy. But still, that's kind of crazy. I was talking to my dad about it, and it's like, man, this kid literally just said no to a scholarship to walk on here. So, man,
they literally could not pay him to move to Baton Rouge.
Yeah,
and they tried. I'm sure they did. Allegedly.
Going from Brentwood to Baton Rouge.
Exactly.
Nobody's going from Brentwood to Baton Rouge.
Exactly.
But no, it's nice too because we were having a conversation about this during the week. Depending on who wins this starting job in the fall, there may be some attrition in the quarterback room. There may one of these guys may look for greener pastures, and you hope that you can keep your quarterback room full of the talent that's there. But whether it's Thompson or Card or whoever it ends up being, because I feel like that Coach Sarkisian's going to come in and it's basically going to be a clean slate, and somebody's just going to have to step up and win this job. It's nice to get a quarterback like that in your quarterback room and give yourself a little bit of depth, and not just depth, like the guy can play. So Lord was a good get for me. But yeah, no, I mean, that was a good way to finish up this class. Of course, overall ranking, would you like it to be a little bit higher? Sure. But like you said, we knew this was going to be a transition class before it was actually a transition class. So there's a lot.
Oh, sorry, Jay.
No,
I was just saying, and getting Ibrahim back in the fold, that's pretty critical because we've struggled to defend the pass. So, I just think that him kind of getting over his situation and getting on board could be a huge benefit here in a few years. So something that's not really talked about a lot is just kind of how this kid battled through everything that happened. And hopefully he can really change his life just being from South Dallas. So.
Yeah, that was a good get. I think what's interesting, just real quick before we get into the 22 class, is we talked about the quarterback position and what Sark's doing. Isn't it refreshing to kind of have full faith in a coaching staff that actually develop if they're going to, whoever the starting quarterback's going to be, kind of really have that faith and like that was the right decision to make. Like no politics, no whatever thing, and kind of go like, okay, well maybe I don't, whether it's Card or Thompson, kind of like there's going to be people that are going to want one or the other and have their opinion on it. But to really kind of have faith that the coaching staff is making the right choice in that starter. But then I think with guys like Lord and bringing in Charles Wright, like they're raising the floor of the quarterback room. Like
100%.
And I think that's exciting. And that's something to, as we now get into the 22 class, kind of something to keep in mind about like, the floor of the quarterback room has been raised. Like if Cole Lord or Wright do have to play at some point, those are going to be like players that are pretty, like they're good. There's no, I don't know. You wouldn't be as concerned obviously, but anyway, let's get into the 22 class. We got about 10 minutes here,
real quick though, I wanted to say, like, when you start to raise the floor of the quarterback room, I feel like that's the first step into becoming that program and being a part of the national conversation again. Is you raise the floor of your quarterback room, then you then that raises the floor of every other, position, and that's when you start to, what's the phrase? A rising tide lifts all ships, and when you start to raise up the quarterback room, that tide starting to come up, and then every other position group starts to come with it. So that to me is an important part of that.
Well, you think about like people made such a big deal out of Tom Herman winning a national championship at Ohio State with his third string quarterback. Was there ever a time at Texas that you felt like Tom Herman could win the Big 12 with the third string quarterback?
or the first string quarterback.
But like,
I mean,
that's case in point to that. If you know, if you're at a point where you can say like, okay, number 1 went down, number 2 went down, shit, we have to play with number 3, but we still feel good about winning this game. That's when we can really start talking about Texas being back. Is when like, just roll them out there.
We're not back.
I'll tell you what being back is, man. Being back is this 22 class. Though.
Yeah. Let's get into that while we got a few minutes here. Let's hit this 22 class. Mike, where are we at?
Yeah, you got 3 commitments already. So you've got, and these are 3 really good players. You got Jalen Gilbo, the defensive back out of the PA, the Port Arthur. You got Armani Winfield, the receiver out of Louisville, and then Jaden Blue, the running back out of Houston, who by all accounts may be the number 1 back in the country based on when they start doing some of these updates to recruiting rankings. So massive get on this front, especially after missing on LJ Johnson and Kamar Wheaton. So what are you guys' thoughts on these 3 guys who are, I mean, these are state, top 15, top 20 guys.
Yeah. My quick thoughts on it. Gilbo, I'll never reject the chance to sign defensive or any football player from that area of Texas, from Port Arthur, Orange, any of those guys. Like, I'll take that every day. And I think guys like Winfield and Blue, I mean, those are just kind of those cornerstone pieces to start with this class. Exciting players that I think are going to be ringleaders and like leaders in general of trying to bring guys in. So, I mean, those are both extremely exciting commitments. All of them.
Yeah, getting a guy like Winfield in early can only help Coach Sarkisian and the rest of the staff with, really set the tone for this. And Jaden Blue, who, Mike, you filled us in. He ran a 10.6 100-yard dash not too long ago. The guy can move. Those are the types of guys that you want leading off a class like this to set the tone. And the guys that are gonna, like you said, they're the Pied Pipers. They're gonna bring everybody with them. The Blue was already hashtagging the blue effect, which is a play off the Ewers effect but before he decommitted. So I mean, Mike, I think it's off to a good start here with this 2022 class.
No, I think it's great, but as all recruiting classes go, it's going to come down to the quarterback that Texas can land. So what are you guys' thoughts on the kind of the 3 guys we've been kind of talking about? Where do we go?
And this isn't based on any kind of info or anything like that. It's just, I feel like the Ewers ship is sailed. I think that there was some excitement when Stark came on. I think there was a little bit of a window there to maybe, and maybe there's still a chance. I think he's going to be pretty firm in his commitment to Ohio State. I think they've done a good job of recruiting him and keeping him in the fold. So who knows? It's recruiting, but I kind of feel like Texas, Sark's smart enough. He's been around enough recruiting battles to know, like, you can't put all your eggs and kind of like counting on trying to get an Ewers flip and miss out on some of these other guys. So
right.
I think I think Sark's going to want to get a bell cow quarterback for this class and soon and move on.
Yeah. And I think we've kind of been talking, it's hopefully going to come down to 2 kids, the kid out of Westlake, Klubnik, and the kid out of California, Malik Murphy. So we'll see kind of where this goes. Jay, what are your thoughts on these kids?
Yeah, I think the Ewers ship has sailed as well. And between Murphy or Klubnik, I mean, it's really just get one of these guys, get them on, get one of these guys to commit to. Really, I mean, for me, it's just you get one on early and get them in the fold, and it really helps to continue to once you get that quarterback in, like we thought we had. With Ewers, now as Texas is looking to reset that 2022 class with the quarterback, I would like it to happen sooner than later, obviously, but for me, it's just get one of those guys in and then go. All gas, no brakes, baby.
Oh man, that gift.
Well, is there
Yeah.
is there a preference over the two? If we're going off the assumption that basically Klubnik and Murphy are the two, is there a preference over if they both said, I'm willing to commit, take the commitment, is there one that you're taking over the other?
Jay, what you think?
I would say Klubnik probably just being the local guy. I mean, it's so early with these guys, you know, like you see some tape on them and you sort of know what their skill set is, but it's just like, for me, it's again, for me, that's why I would just say, just get one of these guys on and go from there. Mike, do you have would you have a preference with either one of these?
Yeah, I kind of, honestly, I think either one's a great get, but I think just for the state of Texas and kind of locking down the state and getting this thing going, I think Klubnik would be the preferred, but I'm not going to say no to Murphy. But I think that you've seen these guys play in Super Bowls that come from the city of Austin. They don't come to Texas. So I'm tired of seeing that. So just recruit all the kids that play quarterback in Austin.
Well,
yeah, bring them all on.
I think the point about kind of locking down the state of Texas is interesting because, I mean, it's something Mac Brown did so well, and obviously the dynamics have changed since then, but like, you know, across the state. But it's I think we also Klubnik's more of a known quantity, like at this point. We've seen him in state championship games against top tier talent. We've seen, you know, we kind of know what he is at this point, where Murphy is still a little bit of an unknown because of the lack of play, the lack of film, but then the measurables just jump off the page. And the arm strength, and you start hearing these guys compare him to like he's like a Jameis Winston, Cam Newton type quarterback at the college level, and you go, oh, those aren't bad comps. But like, I think they're wanting to lock down the state, and locking down kind of the premier program in Austin and turning that into a Texas pipeline is a damn good way to start. So, but yeah, I think the timeline's going to be interesting because Mike, you were saying Klubnik's kind of taking a business-like approach to this, right? I think he's kind of really feeling out all the options. And I mean, does that mean that he's taking his time and really extending out when he's going to make a decision? Or do you see him wanting to get on board with the program that he chooses sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I think the new wave with recruiting is the quarterback really sets the tone for the rest of the class.
Right.
There's a big push for these guys to commit early and get them on board so they can get this thing going with all the skilled players and offensive linemen. So I think you're going to see some decisions made pretty soon. So I guess we'll kind of see which way it goes. And, you know, A&M just got their quarterbacks that might help with Klubnik. So we'll see where it goes. But it's exciting times as always. Love recruiting.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting spring. We'll see how it all plays out, especially once I think there's still going to be some attrition within the program once spring ball starts and portal madness, kicks off again.
I can't wait until Mike starts talking about war daddies with his 2022 class. That's when you know
we're getting into
it's for real.
War daddy season.
May, baby, May.
Yeah.
Well, guys, let's take a break here, and we'll come right back and hit on. I think there's a big football game tomorrow, and let's get into some discussion about that. So, all right, everybody, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Nice little break there. Well, guys, let's switch it up a bit. Let's talk about first, did we ever determine if we can call it by its name, like due to sponsorship rights or all that? Like, are we able to call it the bowl that is super, or the big game?
Yeah,
I think we can call it the Super Bowl. I think we're safe, right?
Yeah, I think we're all right.
All right. Well, let's talk Super Bowl. Where the hell do we even start with this?
Lots of places you can go. I mean, the easiest one to go is the Mahomes Brady matchup.
Yeah.
Who's known as the greatest of all time, and then playing against the guy that is at least going to be paid like he's going to be the next, the guy that could maybe overtake Brady in that. If somebody was ever going to do it, you look at Tom Brady and it's like, man, he's gone to how many Super Bowls? He's won how many of these? Like, how will this ever be achieved again? And then you look across the field at the guy that he's playing against tomorrow, and you say, oh, well, maybe that's the guy. So that to me alone is worth the tune in just to see that matchup again. But no, there's a lot of Mike. What's I guess if you had to pick one sort of storyline or one thing to lead into the Super Bowl, what would it be for you?
I think it's going to be Brady and how he's done this season without Belichick, because there's always been that talk of, can Brady do it without Belichick? Can Belichick do it without Brady? And in Brady's mind, just with the things that have kind of transpired with the way he kind of left, I think he really, really, really wants to get this one to kind of cement himself. There's not going to be a question who the greatest quarterback of all time is. And there's not going to be an attached like, hey, he had Bill Belichick. It's just really a separator for me. So I think that's kind of the biggest storyline I'm looking for. And then I just think it's going to be a really good game. And it's going to be interesting to see what Tampa Bay is going to do to try to slow down Kansas City's offense. Like, what are you going to do with Tyreek Hill after he went for 5 million yards in the first quarter against them earlier in the year? How is the Bucs defense going to play up front? Because they can generate pressure with the best of them. So it's going to be up to JPP and Shaq Barrett and these guys to try to get to Mahomes. And I think that's kind of the big storyline as far as what's going to separate the game, is if there's anything the Bucs can do to get pressure on Mahomes to maybe rattle him or create some turnovers. Because I mean, right now you look at the Chiefs and they're just too dynamic offensively, I think, for me. So
Yep, it's the battle of the guy that puts ketchup on his steak versus the guy that I don't think like drinks water because it's alkalinity or something like that. Whatever, I don't know. It's a couple of interesting dietary choices between the two quarterbacks, but I don't think that's going to determine the game necessarily. No, I think when I look at this game, it's safe to say the Chiefs have the advantage between the two offenses, right? In terms of like explosive plays, just how dynamic they are. The question for me starts coming into who has the defensive edge? And Kansas City's defense isn't bad, right? I mean, they've got some guys that can make some plays there. They can get to the quarterback. Tampa's defense, to me, I think about like Devin White, mentioned JPP, like some of these guys are in slowing down Kansas City. But like, I think, am I crazy in giving Tampa the defensive edge here?
No, what do you think?
No,
Jay?
I don't think so. But and especially because Mike, you mentioned getting pressure on the quarterback, and if Tampa can get pressure on the quarterback without blitzing, that's going to be important. And it's the same thing with the Chiefs against Brady as well. It's like, how can you get pressure? How can you force the quarterback outside of the pocket, out of their comfort zone, and make them and put them on the move without actually having to send extra guys? Because both of these quarterbacks will pick your blitzes apart if they have even a sliver of opportunity to get the ball out. So to me, I think Tampa does have the defensive advantage. And with Eric Fisher being out with the torn Achilles tendon now, that's the Chiefs starting left tackle. They're having to move guys around on this offensive line that are playing in positions that they haven't necessarily played a ton. And this offensive line that's going out there to start the Super Bowl will not have played together as an offensive line or will not have started a game in that, obviously. So if the Buccaneers can get pressure on Mahomes early, like quickly, I mean, because Andy Reid's going to scheme to get the ball out of his hands quickly, and they just have so many weapons. It's like, who do you pick to shut down? And even if you try to stop Hill and Travis Kelce, they had 22 catches for like 209, almost 300 yards and a couple scores in the conference championship game. You know who they're going to. Like you know who they're going to get the ball to, and you can't stop it.
Yeah.
How are you going to stop it? Get pressure on the quarterback, and there will not have ever been a better time to get pressure on Mahomes than now with the offensive line that Tampa Bay is going up against.
Yeah, are we going to see the big game in Ndamukong Suh show up for Tampa? The guy that just terrorized Texas in a Big 12 championship. And like, you talk about that offensive line. Is this, I mean, he's one of those guys that I know he kind of gets forgotten a little bit, but is he kind of the key to this whole thing for the defensive front for Tampa? If he's getting movement and getting through, it opens up everything else for that defense to start getting pressure. And this guy just kicks into a different gear when the stakes have gone up. So for me, he's kind of the wild card on defense. If you start seeing him in the backfield a lot, that's trouble for KC.
Yeah, no, and I think also that you mentioned Kelsey and Hill, but the amount of team speed at the receiver position for Kansas City is ridiculous. Like, I mean, it's just like burner after burner like coming in. You got Demarcus Robinson, Sammy Watkins, McCole Hardman. It's like Jesus, like there's like a track team, 100-meter yard sprint team out there.
It really is.
It's man, what a great job by Kansas City of assembling this amount of talent, because it's pretty crazy to see. You basically have I would say the number one tight end, the number one quarterback in the league. I would say Hill's in the top 5 receivers. I might actually put him 1 because that guy's a nightmare. Just because he doesn't have this. If he had the size, then he would be considered the number 1 receiver in the league.
I agree.
And then, it's just because of his small stature that he's not considered, the number 1 guy that's out there. But it's like, geez, you got some of the best players on offense at their positions. So it's just going to be really tough for Tampa. And like you said, Sue, JPP, if they're going to have to bring their linebackers, it could be a long day for Tampa, because you would leave that guy out on the island again against Tyreek Hill, and this thing will be over by halftime.
Well, does another dynamic that we're seeing for the first time is a team playing in their home stadium. Is there anything to be made or like to take away from that? I mean, anything that's going to really alter the outcome or give Tampa an advantage? I mean,
yeah, I do think there's a little bit of an advantage of being able to sleep in your own bed and not have to travel at all. I mean, Kansas City is only going to have like they're only going to spend the one night, I believe, in Tampa. So it's not like it's just going to be an away game, basically, so there's not this week-long buildup of the Super Bowl and all the media and all of the different events that you were expected to go to. And you don't have your second cousin calling you for tickets that you promised him 13 years ago when you said, if I make it, man, you're going to the Super Bowl with me. You don't have any of that stuff. Yeah. No, it's
rising tides lift all boats, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So
what a weird thing to see though, right? Like, it's going to be weird to see Tampa Bay playing with that that shit behind, like in a Super Bowl with with not a lot of fans. Like, it's going to be a weird thing to see.
Do I think there will be a little advantage? Yeah. Do I think it's going to make a huge difference in this game? No, I don't. But again, this is one of the best players to ever play football, going up against a guy that a lot of people think can be the next best player to ever play football. And to me, it's just I think the stage is bigger than them than playing at home. I just think it's way bigger than it's the Super Bowl. I do think they'll have a little advantage of being able to wake up that next morning and just drive into the stadium. But other than that, man, I think it's the biggest game of maybe and this could be billed as one of the biggest games of all time. And I don't like that hyperbole. Like, I don't, because like when I love wrestling, right? And every WrestleMania is the biggest WrestleMania to ever happen, right? And you don't want to necessarily get into the business of that, but I do think that this could be considered going in. We should be considering this like one of the greatest matchups of all time.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many storylines to it. We've talked about the Brady Mahomes, like kind of the passing of the torch aspect of this game. Talk about Brady, like potentially, I mean, this is his 10th Super Bowl appearance and a chance to get up to 7 rings. Like, that's insane. Like there's a lot, the reduced capacity crowd, the COVID season, like all these things, it's going to be just fascinating to watch. And
Yeah, Tom Brady's got a better chance to make the Super Bowl than Texas does of shooting a free throw. So making a free throw. The odds.
Oh, it hurts. It hurts. It
God.
hurts, but it's true. No, they're just it's a matchup that I think the television ratings will reflect it too.
Oh
I
yeah.
think it'll be the most watched Super Bowl of all time. It's going to be a great one. At least I hope it's not one that we're looking, because this could easily get out of hand.
Yeah.
I think that's something that should be stated.
I think it could too.
This could get out of hand from a Kansas City perspective.
Because Brady can turn the ball over.
He has been this postseason. Yeah.
And you give these guys a short field game time.
Well, and again, it's like when you looked at that muffed punt in the AFC Championship game, and they go down 10 points after that or whatever, and you're still like it's Kansas City. Like,
yeah,
they're still good. I'm not, you don't even worry about it at that point. So even if Kansas City makes some mistakes, gets down early, it's still like, yeah, they're like they're the professional version of all gas and no brakes.
Yeah.
In terms of just it's just like, no, we're down 10 now, but we're just going to do our thing because that's what we do. And we're better than you, and you're not going to be able to stop it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that to me, it's going to be this. Can Tampa Bay even remotely slow down this Kansas City offense? And if and when, because I do feel like Tom Brady will turn the ball over, how do they, do they let that get them into a hole? And how does that defense respond after that, especially, Mike, like you said, on the short field? So no, it's going to be a great one. Will Gronkowski end up playing a big role in this? It's a guy that Tom Brady basically begged to come back. He was a champion in WWE. And then Tom Brady, got him to come back and play football. Like, that's what he wanted to do. And I just feel like it's almost one of those things where Brady's going to want to reward Gronk. Like, I'm not expecting 12 catches out of him, but when Tampa Bay gets down into the red zone, I really do expect Brady to go to look at his buddy Gronk in situations like that tomorrow in this game. So we'll see how that turns out. But no, it's going to be a great one, guys.
Yeah, just as we were talking about Kansas City and their ability to come back, whether it's down, down in the AFC Championship or down to Houston, was it 24-0 the year before, to kind of tie this back into what we were discussing with Baylor earlier. Like
Jay's face after that comment.
But that's a team that's been there. They've had those deficits. They've been in those battles. They have that. They can call upon that experience to be able to say, like, we've been down by 10, we've been down by 24, we've been down by this much, and we've been able to just come back. You keep working, keep doing your job, and they don't get flustered by it. And that, talking about the Baylor stuff, where that's a team that at least this season hasn't been in those types of battles. They haven't been in that like frame of mind at this point.
Right.
And I think that's valuable experience for a team in any sport to be able to be like, yeah, we're down by however much, we're fine, because we've been here.
Right.
And yeah, Tampa, that's where, I was coming into this discussion thinking that, like, it's the Super Bowl, it's going to be a good matchup, all these factors, and like, this is going to be a pretty close game. But the more that we're talking about it, Tampa's kind of, if Green Bay didn't go so conservative, like, we might not be talking about Tampa playing in this game. And I don't have that same feeling about Kansas City. Like, there's kind of no question who was going to win the AFC, really. And
that Green Bay
this one could get ugly, actually. The more that we're talking about it, the more I'm starting to feel like Kansas City could really just three-wheel these guys.
The thing for me is that the reason why Bruce Arians is in the Super Bowl is because he plays to win. He threw the ball on first down when they got the ball back, when you're trying to kill the clock, because you're playing to win. And LaFleur just, I don't know, that was a fireable offense for me.
Yeah.
I don't care what it's like Tom Herman coaching in the NFL. It's like, what is your win probability say? It's we got 3%.
It's what the chart said.
What does
Yeah,
the
but
binder say?
But the binder doesn't tell you that Bruce Arians isn't going to give you the ball back because he's going to throw it and not run the ball 3 times to let you use your 3 timeouts. So like all that stuff just goes out the window. Like that was such a Tom Herman like thing to do.
Winning's really hard, man.
I hate
winning is hard.
Why is this always circle back to him? Everything in my life circles back to Tom Herman.
we talk about all this all gas, no brakes, but at the end of the day, do you know how hard it is to win? Winning is really, really hard.
It's
People don't
difficult,
understand
guys.
that.
Oh, man.
Momentum's an illusion too. You build it up, but it's just an illusion. but when you think about it, let's just put all that aside and let's just go 1-0 this week, okay, guys? Let's just do that.
Whoever does that this week's going to win the Super Bowl.
See, there's truth to it.
See, just do it. It's all you have to do. Just go 1-0 this week.
There's truth to it.
Who do you guys got winning this thing?
Yeah, go ahead, guys.
Who do y'all have winning this thing?
I've got Kansas City. I kind of came in, like I said, came into this conversation thinking it's going to be a closer game. I was thinking something along the lines of like a 35-31, something like that for Kansas City. But I mean, the more we talk about this, I think it might be a little more comfortable for Kansas City. And watch, I say that and Brady's going to go win another damn ring. But like, I think there's too much firepower, and I think that they're good enough on defense. And Brady has been turning the ball over. You talk about Arians, he plays to win, but Brady, that can almost backfire on them a bit if they start trying to press in too many situations and trying to force the ball down the field too much. That Brady could turn it over another 2 to 3 times. So,
right.
I think Kansas City wins by a touchdown. I think something like 35-28, just to put a general kind of number out there. But like, I think Kansas City by a touchdown.
Mike?
Well, just because I've lost so much money over the years on the Super Bowl and prop betting and who's going to score the first touchdown. No, I haven't done the national anthem, but I might do it tomorrow. I've got a weird game. I've got a 26-20 Tampa Bay.
Whoa! All right.
Because everybody thinks that this game is going over, and so your boy here is going to be contrarian.
You got to swim upstream, man. Swimming upstream.
I actually like to go to the difficult path,
No, it makes the reward that much greater.
I don't mind the pick. I'm going to be really honest with you, Mike. I don't mind the pick at all, and I think there's a much bigger chance that Tampa Bay pulls this win off than a lot of people are giving them credit for. I mean, to me, I don't think they pulled the win off with the shootout, so that's why I like the low score. What were you going to say? No, that makes perfect sense, and that is definitely if Tampa Bay is going to win, that's the type of game that they're going to have to win in order to be successful here, because they're not going to, like you said, they're not going to outgun them. They're just not going to do it. So I get where you're coming from there. I'm not going to pick Tampa Bay though. I'm going to go Chiefs 38, Tampa 27, and I would not be surprised if it got even more out of hand than that. But I'm gonna say that they keep it close enough, and there. I will say though, real quick before we move on to a special guest pick here, if we hear Vita Vea's name a lot on this broadcast, I feel like that's going to be the type of game that will lean towards what Mike is talking about, because that's going to be the key for me. Is like you were talking about Sue holding the lineup earlier. Yeah. And if Golston on that defensive line as well. If we're hearing those defensive linemen's names, it's going to be a game like Mike was talking about. But I don't see it being the case. But we'll see. So hey, right now, real quick, guys, we got a special guest here. Come on up.
Live from Radio Row.
Yeah, live from Radio Row. We've got Finley coming on board.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, man.
All right, here it is.
All right.
Yeah.
Who's your Super Bowl pick? Tampa Bay or Kansas City?
Kansas City.
Oh, yeah.
What's the score going to be?
I think it's 100.
Whoa,
Kansas City by 100? There it is, man. You got to.
Would you be surprised, though, guys? I mean.
No. I'm actually going to book that here in a minute after we get off the show.
I'll Venmo you some money, Mike, so you can.
Anything else you want to say from that?
Oh my
you got to OnlyFans for gambling purposes, right? Or I'm sorry, recreational purposes.
There's a few other things on there.
Yeah. All right. Well,
at me.
yeah.
Well,
You'll have to
Finley's
talk to
on,
Mike
but we got-
offline about that. We'll have to.
Yeah.
Today's show
Yeah, you
brought to
can-
you by OnlyFans.
You can. I'm glad we got Finn off the air before we heard that one. Hey, take that to mom, okay? Thanks for your pick, Finley. All right,
my
that's good
God.
stuff.
Link in the description.
Yeah.
Like and share.
Ebony Man of the Month.
Good.
I love when the show
man.
goes off the walls, man.
Oh man, yeah. All right, let's get this back on the rails here, as much as we can.
Yeah. It's
All gas, no brakes.
all gas, no brakes, baby.
Hey man, yeah. I mean, it only makes sense, right? Given the Jeff Banks, stuff with Pet Monkey, and I think she's got an OnlyFans. Well, that's for another we'll save that for the spring football.
You're gonna get me in trouble, man.
Yeah, we'll leave. Yeah, we'll move on from there. Yeah, it should be a good one tomorrow. Looking forward to the football. So,
the foosball.
So real quick, we'll hit some Austin FC news. Nothing too notable besides last night MLS and the Players Association reaching a CBA agreement. I love that we basically in every sport kind of have to talk about these things every few years where it's like, oh yeah, there's not a lockout or a strike or anything like that. Yeah, they reached an agreement. We're going to have an MLS season on schedule. There was just only reason this was notable is because we were talking about having an Austin FC season start here pretty soon. Preseason starts later this month. And they're still in the process of, signing some players and all those things, but that would have been put on hold if there was a work stoppage. And now that's not going to be the case. So we're on schedule for that. And we'll get into more of a season preview as we have a schedule and a full team and those things in the next few weeks. So, anything you guys want to add on that? Any of that MLS news or?
It's just typical, it's like you said, it's that time again to hear about a labor stoppage in American sports. So I'm glad they took care of it. And because if we're building up this Austin FC club and we're excited to talk about it here on the show and to be a part of it. And Mike, you mentioned that you guys, your family has season tickets to Austin FC. So it's like, I'm glad that we're going to get a season in, and the local TV deal came down. Did we talk about that last week, Kerry?
I think that came down after the show. Yeah,
the local TV deal came in. So here in Austin, in the Austin area, you'll be able to watch it on antenna television on KNVA. So channel 54 on the antenna, and there'll also be some on KBVO, which is in the channel is the 14s on the antenna, as well as some on KXAN. So that whole family of networks, all non-nationally televised Austin FC games will be on local programming on antenna TV. So very exciting to see that they were able to work that out. It's a very good decision, in my opinion, because it's just only going to help really draw more eyes to this club. So that was a big deal that went down last week in terms of solidifying that TV deal.
Yeah, and that was just the English language TV rights. There's still going to be Spanish language TV rights, which I'd imagine are going to be over the air antenna rights as well. So there'll be that option. And then we're still waiting on the radio affiliate to be announced. So, there's really only 2 stations in Austin. So it's either going to be 104.9 and that family of networks there with the Horn, or 1300. I would imagine it's going to be 104.9, just with the way that, they've started to pick up some of the discussion a bit there. I know they've had Glenn Davis have a show on there. I think he's doing a weekly thing now, right? Is he on there once a week? Weekly. Soccer Matters with Glenn Davis.
Yep.
So I think that's going to kind of all work out. But yeah, it's exciting. I mean, there's not going to be a ton of nationally televised matches for Austin FC at this point. I mean, they'll probably put the first match nationally or something. It's kind of what MLS would want to do to kind of showcase the new team. But I mean, those are even going to be those are really easy to find if you have any kind of cable or streaming service, because it's either going to be like on ESPN or Fox Sports. And so, yeah, it's not going to be difficult watching this team.
Yeah, I just hope KTBO, acquires Scott Fisher in a trade, so we can get the weather while I'm out there.
That's Jay's favorite, man.
No,
That's Jay's
why
favorite.
would
I'm
you
glad.
do
I'm glad
that?
Scott Fisher is making a guest appearance on this show.
Fisher fans in this one, are we? Man,
You got
yeah.
Jay's fanboy list is Scott Fisher, Mac McClung.
Oh,
the list goes
God.
on and on.
Yeah, Jay, you run the Buda chapter of the Scott Fisher fan club, right? Like that's the.
Yeah, like and subscribe on Facebook.
That wait list is so long.
Does Scott Fisher have an OnlyFans?
Oh man.
Do we want to
Mom,
know?
what's OnlyFans? Jeez.
Dad, if you're watching this, don't worry about that.
Yeah. Hey,
You can find Scott Fisher's OnlyFans at Scott Fisher at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Anyway.
Yeah, let's move on from Fisher fanatic talk.
Onlyfisherfans.com.
Only Fisher.
Yeah, nailed it.
Jeez. Yeah. Well, let's move on from that. I know we wanted to wrap up the show with a little bit of nostalgia and a little bit of right now, because my friends, EA Sports College Football is coming back. Confirmed coming back. Guys, are you excited about EA Sports College Football coming back? And I know you have everybody has a story about playing college football on a PlayStation or an Xbox back in the day, but are you guys excited for this?
Yeah, they just need to get these stimulus checks out as quick as possible, because it's only gonna be on the next gen consoles. And how am I supposed to get a PS5 or a new Xbox or anything like that? Like, can we get I think the timing isn't a surprise. It was, I think EA said, hey, stimulus checks are on the way. Let's cash out on this and get these out there so we can get the biggest selling sports game of all time back in people's homes. But, yeah, I'm excited about it. I mean, it's God, that's the greatest. I mean, playing NCAA football. Yeah, I mean,
Mario Kart.
That too, yeah.
FIFA's been a popular one, for a number of years now, but NCAA football, at least probably for us, for where we're from, the age that we are, you couldn't beat that. That was the best. Bunch of friends over and just have a tournament. Maybe some fights break out over
getting online rage quit.
Oh man.
Yeah, I don't know how many actual PlayStation 2 consoles I ruined by either somebody, or not just necessarily me, but playing. I've seen, kicked over and you jerk a remote because you're mad and you throw the remote, and not me, of course.
Yeah.
But it's the recruiting too, the dynasties that you build on the college football games, and just the year after year after year, you take a no-name program and build them up, or you take Texas and you just recruit and you roll. It's one of those things where I spent a lot of spare time when I should have been in class or studying or whatever else. Spent a lot of time in those UT dorms. I didn't live in the dorms. I just I went there instead of class, but that's another story for another day. Playing college football with my buddy Lane from LaGrange, and we're just, anyways, those are the days. I can't wait for this to come out. And we need those stimmies to come in now so we can go get these consoles, because I would do it just for this game. I had no desire to buy a PS5 or anything like that.
This is a gateway game.
See,
so this is going to lead to a PS5, which is going to lead to more games, which is going to lead to me not talking to my wife as much, which is going to lead to fights down the road. This is just, it's great, but when you really boil it down, is it that great? No, but the thing I'm going to miss, that I missed most was, being up at 1 a.m. typing in the names on the back of the jerseys, to match the current players on the rosters. So I'm looking forward to spending at least 2 weeks doing that and not even enjoying the game. So.
Yes. Oh man, there's so many of those little things that you do. Like it's not.
Like, why is
it's not
Casey Thompson at 84?
Yeah.
Well, so I want to ask this, but we got a few minutes here. If there was one new feature that you could add to this new NCAA football game, what would it be?
Oh man, that's a great question.
I've seen some ideas. This was kind of a discussion the other day when this came out, like on Twitter and stuff like that, about like, is there going to be a portal? Like for recruiting,
yes.
Like, do you have to continue to recruit players that are on your team to keep them from transferring? Can you recruit, like, is there going to be a portal? Is there going to be, like, can you throw some bags of money at a recruit and like risk getting caught and being put on probation? Yeah, right. Like, but like, what would be a feature or some kind of like, here we are, nearly a decade on from the last NCAA football video game. Like, what would you add? What would you like to see?
Oh man, I would like to see Texas be good in one of these games. A feature, man. I don't know. That's a great question, man. Like, God, it's been so long since I've like messed around on video games that, something like the portal would be pretty cool though. It just adds another dynamic. I think the most fun part about the game is recruiting and building a dynasty, taking like a UNLV or Bethune-Cookman to national promise, since that will never happen.
Yeah, for me, I was just so like, my favorite version of that was 2002. So like, I love just the generic, like, I don't necessarily need any more bells and whistles, but like for like in-game play, I guess, like when you're talking about the hit stick stuff and okay, I get that, but I don't need the quarterback vision and all that. I know what receiver's open. I call the play. Okay. So I don't know, man. I don't necessarily like the portal thing. Seems cool. Cause then, if Tom Herman isn't playing Jake Smith or whatever, and he decides he wants to leave and, that sort of thing. Cause if you rotate your receivers in.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you rotate your positional units to like just piss everybody off?
Yeah,
and try to force them all out.
Yeah, like if your stamina goes under 95, you automatically come out.
See, that's deep. That's a deep dive right there, man. That's deep cut when you start talking about stamina ratings and stuff like that, man. Boy, I love it. And that's the kind of stuff that I miss about this sort of a game. You dive deep in all those numbers and matchups and who should I substitute in this package and this formation and what's, for this play that I like to call and this. Oh yeah. It's
setting the Steve Patterson beer pricing to, generate revenue.
Those blended increases on seat prices, all those things that you could really, it's a fully immersive experience in NCAA football 22.
Blended 6% ticket price increase. Yeah.
Name, image, and likeness stuff, like.
Yeah.
It's gonna be. I'm really looking forward to it. I think they said it's still a little ways out, the development of the game and the release, so I wouldn't expect it by this holiday season. But hopefully in the next year or two that's released, and hopefully by then the stimulus checks are out and we can really kind of whirl those away to start getting ready for getting that PS5.
Come on, let's go, Joe. You promised us. Let's do it. Time's ticking, buddy. Okay.
Clock's ticking, man. The election season never stops.
Yeah. Judge Judy gift.
That's right. Yeah. Let's go.
Hey.
Well, guys, speaking of the clock ticking, we're down under a minute here. Let's wrap this thing up, man. It was a good show. I'll make sure to put Scott Fisher's OnlyFans in the show notes. And
oh my God, mine too. Don't forget mine.
I won't.
Yeah,
I won't. I got you covered. All right, guys. Well, this has been a good one.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
ATX representing Fatal, baby.